Welcome, everybody. So today, I hope this is not going to be confusing, but uh, today's meeting is called Bliss Techniques. So I'm changed the name from Move into Stillness to Bliss Techniques, and we're now having two Bliss Techniques meetings each week. So the schedule remains the same, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, just as before. Same great content you've always loved, but I think my intention is that it will be better organized, more coherent, and overall better. So I hope that you will also like the change, even though in some ways it's not a big change, but small changes sometimes make a big difference. So let's start by, I made notes. So because I always have so many things I want to get to, and then I kind of go off on tangents and I don't stay to what I want to get to. So I think it'll be more valuable if we stay on point. So beginning, what is the intention of Bliss Techniques? Because I don't know, we'll see. I like the name because I think to me it expresses clearly what the intention is, but I also understand that maybe we'll see how it works. I don't know if people will get it or not. But at very least I can explain it to you so that it makes sense to you if you're here, which is um, that our nature, our true nature is bliss. And so this is, in many ways, this is a fundamental difference between what we could call broadly Eastern thought and Western thought. That is, that there's a very strong story that is influencing Westerners and people who are under the influence of the West, which is this notion of original sin. Now, you might say, oh, well, I don't believe in original sin. I've grown up and I'm beyond that. But I'm telling you that it has a very strong effect on how you understand yourself and your world, whether you are aware of it or not. And this is not this notion doesn't exist in Eastern thought and probably in most indigenous thought. So the fundamental reality, as understood by those who actually are interested in the direct experience, we could put it that way, that anybody who's interested in direct experience rather than an overlay will observe that actually the fundamental reality is good. It is not bad. There's not, we have nothing to fear. That in fact, what is here underlying it all is so delightful, so wonderful, so generous, so compassionate, so just in a word, good, that we can trust it is okay. It is very, very good. And so bliss is a word to describe this goodness. It is what the sages have described, that the actual nature of the self, that fundamental underlying reality, is described as Sat Chit Ananda. So Sat means being, Chit means consciousness or awareness, uh, and or you could even say mind. And although they have a different word that they use that's usually translated as mind, but we could also understand it in a sense as mind. And Ananda, which is often translated as bliss, and that's what we're pointing to by this name, Bliss Techniques. So this is important because the techniques that we utilize are not to generate bliss. It is not to create bliss. It's not to get rid of our badness so that and replace it with goodness and bliss. No, it is to reveal the underlying bliss that is already here, that we just didn't recognize, we didn't know about it. And so we were afraid, we were armored. We were behaving in some kind of strange ways because we were confused. And so we are revealing that. We're revealing that we were confused, and we're revealing that underneath that is a fundamental goodness, and that we experience that or can experience that as bliss. So hopefully that's clear. So that is the intention of these meetings. That's what we're looking to do. So all the techniques and the knowledge that are shared here, that's the intention, is to reveal that. And importantly, this is an integrative path. So there are those paths that are very interested only in a kind of escape. They view that the world is suffering, and that it's unredeemable. It's always suffering. It will always be suffering. And by the way, anyway, it's all a delusion. So best to just finally be done with it entirely. And so in that sense, waking up is understood as waking up from a dream. So it's like that this life is perceived as a nightmare that we want to wake up from. So that's a path that many people subscribe to, and maybe it has merits. Personally, I found that path to be a kind of dead end, and I'm not alone in that. This has also been reported for thousands of years by many people to be ultimately a dead end, because there's a fundamental failure to recognize that what was perceived as the absolute truth was partial truth. Yes, this world is like a dream, but that dream is not separate from consciousness. So it's a false notion that there is a consciousness that exists without the dream, or that there is any separation whatsoever. And so it's only because of the wrong view that the world is perceived to be evil or unredeemable or only suffering. In fact, a much a more truthful, and at the very least we could say a much more beneficial way to understand and perceive is to see that there is a unitive living reality that is Sat Chit Ananda, that it is not separate from this world. That now, don't misunderstand that to mean, well, then I should just go back to the way that I was living my life before, when I was in suffering, but I was viewing everything as this world is it. This is all there is. It's all just about material reality. No, that's not what's being said. What's being said is that that was wrong. That was incorrect. It led to a lot of pain and misery and suffering. But when we react to it and we think we have to escape from it, and that this world is all bad, then that also leads to a different kind of pain and suffering. And that the resolution is one that is beyond that polarity, without negating the existence of the polarity. In other words, it's integrative. And so we are both in the world, and yet recognizing that this world is not as we had imagined it when we imagined that it was an objective material reality out there independently. And so I've said enough about that, I think, because we're 13 minutes in and I've got so many things I want to get to. Okay, so hopefully that makes it clear, though, that we're aiming, the aim is for healing. Okay, so healing, the meaning of the word healing means a return to wholeness. So it means, or a revelation of wholeness. So heal and whole, have the same root. So they're pointing to the same fundamental thing. So when we think of healing, I want you to think of a return to wholeness, a revelation of the bliss that is your true nature, not as something separate, not as something that you only can find when you get away from this world, but actually in this world through the experience. Hopefully that's clear. There's so many ways that I know that it can be misunderstood, so I keep wanting to clarify it, but if I do that, it will be the entire meeting. So next thing I want to talk about is the benefit of a routine or a daily practice. Now, sometimes people have a resistance to daily practice. Not all of you who are here, but sometimes people do. And so I just want to briefly address that, just because otherwise some people who otherwise would benefit from actually having the daily routine will not. So first of all, we want to understand that we do have a routine. Now, the routine may be it will be supportive of some experience. See, the routine is the experience. We want to understand that all of what we are experiencing is vibrational or rhythmic in nature. So everything, and I've been trying to make this point recently, that because it's really important that we start to make a shift from materialistic consciousness to a higher level of consciousness. So we want to start to see that, okay, I have been very accustomed to perceiving in materialistic terms, but that has not worked out very well for me. So I want to start to shift and see, yes, I have a tendency to leap to these materialistic conclusions, to think that anything other than materialistic thinking is airy-fairy and impractical. And actually, it's not, it's the opposite of that, because these so-called concrete and real materialistic thoughts and perceptions only serve to keep us stuck in the same patterns. Meanwhile, we're denying that we're stuck in patterns, you see, because we're still thinking that it's about some narrative. It's about something that we can figure out in mind, and then we can come up with a plan and we can execute on that plan, take some actions that's going to make everything good and right. If we just know what things to do and we sequence them in the right place, in the right way, then somehow that's going to work, even though it's never worked. So we want to see that actually what's happening is that we are stuck in a pattern, we are stuck in a rhythm, we are stuck in a vibration, and it's one that's not working for us. It's not supportive of what we want. So we want to start to see, okay, maybe the way I've been approaching this is incorrect in the sense that it's not producing the results that I want. So I need to be willing, if I want to have better results, I need to be willing to step back from the thing that I've been habitually doing, that's producing the results that I don't want. And I want to start to see, okay, yes, it's true. I have rhythms. I have rhythms in my life. So for example, and you might think this just seems too trivial and obvious to be of any benefit, but I want to make the point to you that it's anything but, that it's enormously powerful. For those of you who participated in the Journey Principles program, you may, many of you reported that you experienced benefits from establishing a routine in which you got up with the sunrise. Well, in retrospect, I think it was an excellent program, and I don't have any regrets about it. But always in hindsight's 2020, and I think, oh, I could do it better. So now I'm doing it better. I want to be clear that yes, there may be certain things that we can do, like synchronizing our biological clock with the rhythms of nature, that are helpful to us, that are supportive of what we want. Because if we're not in rhythm, if our biological rhythm is not in alignment, synchronized with the rhythm of the greater cosmos, then I'm working against nature. Think about that for a second. See, if you are imagine that you're wanting to to walk somewhere, and you happen to know that um, during a certain hour, the wind blows very, very hard in exactly the opposite direction of the way you want to go. Would it make any sense to you to walk there in that way at that time? Now, hopefully it wouldn't unless you're a masochist. And if you're a masochist, maybe you should like see that that's not helpful to you. Because, and I'm making the point that clearly I made a list, and I have to go off. I have to elaborate on these points. Because it's so important. I'm just, I'm like 19 minutes in, and I'm only on the second point, and I haven't even really gotten to it. But we don't want to be working against ourselves. We don't want to be working against nature. It's foolish. So hopefully you can see that. And you want to see that nature has rhythms. So yes, of course, aligning yourself with that is excellent. It's very good. It will help you. But we also want to see what are the other aspects of our rhythm, not just what time we get up and what time we go to bed, and what the quality of the light is that we're partaking in, because that's also part of it. Is that, if you're under, there are no, I'm pointing up as if there were artificial lights up there. There are none, but if there, many of us have artificial lights above us a lot of the time, and they have an impact on us. So we want to be aware of these things so that we can start to align ourselves with nature and we can benefit. So routine, establishing supportive routines is very, very wonderful and good. So for those who have been participating in Bliss techniques for some time, that I've encouraged a daily practice. And so I want to encourage that here. And I also want to invite you to start to expand upon that idea for yourself and see how you can start to consciously co-create your life by establishing rhythms, routines, and habits that are supportive of what you want. So I will propose, as I have done in the past, but I'll propose it again anew, that for everybody, one of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problem, well, we could say the biggest problem in life is what we could generally term ignorance. And more specifically, we can say the biggest problem or the biggest ignorance is ignorance of the self. Now, most people would say, Pasha, what are you talking about? I know who I am. My name is John Doe, and I live at such and such place, and I vote in this way, and I have this type of job, and I went to that kind of school, and I'm, this, et cetera, et cetera. But that's only demonstrating the ignorance of the self, because that's mistaking all of these things for you. And what this means is that you're attached to all of these things that are by nature transient, but your sense of permanence, in fact, your very sense of existence depends upon these things which are by their nature transient. And so you've set yourself up for misery right there. So this ignorance of the self is what we really want to remedy. And so traditionally, and for good reason, the main remedy given for this is what's termed meditation. That term meditation is not a good one in English, because the word is used to mean other things, like to meditate upon something. So there's an object of awareness, but of the meditation. But the meditation that we're talking about here is not a meditation on something. It is we could call it just awareness of self, or awareness, not even awareness of self, but just awareness. Well, this is somewhat challenging for many people to really get a start with. So, but we have to start where we are. And this is one of those principles that I bring up often. And it might seem like, what, obvious. How could that be useful? But start to remember it and notice how often you're trying to start somewhere other than where you are, and how hard that is for you and painful. So we want to start to see the great benefit in starting where we are. And so in this case, we recognize, okay, this is a curious notion that I could just be aware. But then immediately we start thinking about it. Well, what does that mean? And does it mean this thing that I read about? Does it mean that thing that I had that experience of? And what about this other thing? And well, so we would need to start to distinguish and see, well, these are thoughts. So awareness, those are objects of awareness. That's not simply awareness. So we can just notice, okay, those are thoughts, and just drop them. You don't have to go to war with them. That wouldn't be helpful, but you just drop them. So this is, in a sense, the basic practice of meditation. And this can be, it's recommended by traditionally and also by me that this is done formally, seated, or in some other posture, but not while engaged in other activities, daily. Why daily? Because at a minimum, you want to get to know yourself every day. If you're walking around asleep most of the time, then doesn't it make sense that you'd want to at least give 5 minutes to being awake, 5 minutes to knowing yourself, 5 minutes to reality every day, just 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. But the trouble is, we say, oh, that sounds like I should do that. That would be something I should do. I'll put that on my, I should go to the gym. I should, eat more vegetables, and, go for a walk every day, and be grateful. That's another one I should do, and then at the bottom of your list, you'll add, and I should meditate for 5 to 10 minutes every day. And now you've just got a long list of shoulds, and you feel bad about it, which is not at all what we're after. So it's important that meditation, because in its truest sense, meditation it's being intimate with the truth, just the bare truth, without any overlay, without any projection, without any anything. Because remember, a lot of us, we're fearful that this isn't enough, it's not adequate, I need all these other things, and maybe it's not safe, maybe it's the devil. And so we have a really, really hard time actually being intimate with truth in this way. And we're constantly doing all these other things. So we can learn through the intention and practice of meditation to come to rest more and more, and in that intimacy. So it's not going to happen for most people on day 1, or on day 2, or on day 3, or day 4. Maybe it takes a long time, but maybe we start to have little flashes, little glimpses, and we should be grateful for those, because it's showing us that there's something that we were misunderstanding, and now we're seeing that there's something beyond our misunderstanding, something greater than our misunderstanding, something that's wholesome and good. Well, this is really wonderful. Now, of course, we go back really quickly to our old way, and fearful and cynical and hardened and everything, but that's why we want to just recognize those flashes, and not a should, but open to gratitude. Just see if gratitude can arise there, that you've had this glimpse. Because who knows how it's, days, weeks, years, decades, maybe lifetimes, maybe thousands of lifetimes. We don't know that we've been in ignorance. And so and quite possibly of our own doing. So let's not rush to the conclusion that, why would God create such an unfair universe? That's no good. I don't like God. I mean, that's where our minds often go, but let's not go there. Let's instead stay open and open to this fundamental goodness instead of hardening ourselves, closing ourselves off. Okay, so the routine is, I would recommend that you have this commitment every day to just being still physically and allowing the mind to be calm, so that you're not, yes, the mind will be agitated, but don't get involved in it. Don't fight with it. Don't do anything. Just be aware and let go. Now, as I say, for many of us, this is very challenging. So we want to also have rhythms that support us in being able to have this intimacy with truth. Because as I'm saying, this is the remedy to the problem. So the problem is ignorance. The remedy is knowledge. The knowledge is not something that somebody can tell us or we can read in a book. It's self-knowledge. It's direct experience. It can't be had in any other way. It doesn't matter who's told you what, because if you don't actually look for yourself and have that intimacy, then it's just another idea. And we all know the pain of just having another idea. The idea can be powerful, no doubt about it. It has to start there. But we have to allow that idea to guide us. We have to look where the idea is pointing us, and we have to discover that directly within ourselves, within the direct experience. So other things that can be supportive are really important, and that's a lot of what we're covering in the remaining 29 minutes of today's meeting. And I encourage you to find ways that work for you to incorporate these into a daily rhythm, a daily routine, because having the routine means that you don't have to work so hard. You've established something that is working for you. Like, it is a vehicle, and it's up to you to choose the vehicle. Now, you've unconsciously chosen a vehicle. That's what we've done in this lifetime. We unconsciously chose a vehicle, somewhat slapdash, here, whatever. This is what I got. All right. Without recognizing that it's not like that, actually, that we get to shape the vehicle. There is an element of choice, and we need to choose wisely in alignment with what we fundamentally and intuitively recognize is truthful, because we know that what is truthful is what we intimately in our hearts experience as goodness. And we know that actually that's trustworthy. We're afraid of it, that it's maybe not trustworthy, but we know it. We know that it's trustworthy. We know that what's really deeply good, that has no real words to describe it. It's not objectified. It's not projected onto something else, although it often is. But in its essence, it's formless and it's intimate. It's at the core of us, and we know it. So it is trustworthy, but we have to learn. We have to cultivate that trust, and so that's what meditation allows us. So, the vehicle, the greater vehicle, is this whole life. And so, if we say, okay, I'm going to meditate for, and please don't do it that way, but that's what we all think of. Oh, I'm going to meditate. It should be very natural, very relaxed. But if you're sitting, it should be upright, not slouched, not collapsed, because for reasons that I won't elaborate on today. But just that's how it will be best. Now, of course, if you can't sit upright, you can choose other postures, but just choose the other postures consciously. Okay. Don't lie down just because you say, I'm kind of tired. No, that wouldn't be the correct thing because it wouldn't be supportive of what you really want. But if you need to lie down because you're clear that is true, wonderful. But just choose consciously. Okay, so the greater life, though, not just the 5 to 10 minutes or the 1 hour or the 2 hours or whatever, because sometimes people get very prideful. They work up I've done 5,000 hours of vipassana, and I've done 10,000 and on and on. Okay, so but what has it done for you? Because it seems like maybe it's inflated your ego a bit. And that's not to say you're bad or that ego is bad. It's just to say that seems painful. So so our whole life is what really matters, because even if you're meditating, even if you were to meditate 8 hours a day, you know what? You've still got another 16 in which you're not. That matters a great deal. And let's face it, we're not meditating for 8 hours a day, and that's okay. But we can meditate when we're not meditating, because the rest of our day should also be conscious. And there are so many ways in which we can support ourselves in that. But one of the ways, which I'm emphasizing now, 35 minutes into the meeting, is it's interesting to get a view into my mind, isn't it? My strange neuroses. So is that we want to have our lives organized into supportive rhythms. So, for example, getting up with regularity, is supportive, because if not, then you're kind of all over the place. It's hard for you to establish yourself in your place and activity because you're not sure that that's where you should be. But when there's a regular rhythm of, okay, this is the time that I get up, doesn't mean you have to be rigid about it, but it means that it starts to be supportive, so that it starts to do your life for you in a way that is truly supportive of what is true. So for most people, having good rhythms in the morning is especially important, because that's going to set the tone for the rest of the day. I'm sure we all know that if we say, oh, I got up on the wrong side of the bed today, what we're really saying is, I got off to the wrong rhythm today. I just got established in the wrong thing, the thing that's not supporting me, and I'm kind of struggling against it. I'm working against nature. So when we see that maybe our morning rhythm maybe isn't as conscious and supportive as we'd like it to be, great. So we don't beat ourselves up about it and say, oh, I've failed and I can't believe I'm such and such old and I'll never make it because I didn't even, haven't even established a decent morning rhythm. What a flop I am. No, it's to say, wow, this is great. Finally, after all these years, I've discovered something that was hurting me. And now I can make a change. And knowing that this has been a habit that's been going on for all of these years, I can have the right expectation. Oh, maybe it won't be just like I snap my fingers and tomorrow everything is great, because come on, we've had that wrong expectation, haven't we? And that's hurt us, because we say, this is going to be the thing. I'm going to go to this workshop. I'm going to do this practice. I'm going to do this thing. And then tomorrow, everything should be great. Or immediately, I should feel great. Well, that hasn't worked out so well for us. So we want to at least start to see, okay, I've had these dysfunctional rhythms. I'm grateful now that I see that, because I see how I've been hurting myself. Now I can begin to make change consciously. That's going to require that I'm committed to it. I have to remember. So, hey, guess what? You can support yourself in that. Like, make notes, journal. You don't think you have to make like that you have to write pages and pages. I used to think that there's this book, The Artist's Way, that many gets a lot of really good reviews from people. It's been recommended to me for more than 20 years, and I've read it a couple of times. And the notion there is you're supposed to write 3 pages every day. Well, guess what? Ain't gonna do that. So then journaling goes out the window. But you could just have a journal. Maybe you're a 3 pages every day sort of person. Wonderful. But if you're not, then you could at least find a way that it could be supportive of you. Like, make a note in your journal of something that you learn that's important that you want to remember. And then the next day, when you go to journal again, you can review and see, oh, there's that note of that thing I don't remember. And then you can journal it again, like, hey, this is that thing that's really important. I want to remember it. So that you're kind of just establishing a list of the things that are important. Boy, this is really powerful. Like, you can literally just take a couple of powerful ideas, and by reminding yourself of them and establishing those as part of your rhythm every day, your life changes. You can take any one of the things, like not just the things that I share, but other things. But for example, things that I share, like, we can only start where we are. Like, you could just take that one. Not that I'm saying that's the most brilliant thing ever, but hey, it's powerful if you just reflect on that every day. So these are things that could support you. Another thing that I will invite you to consider including in your daily routine is self-massage. Point 3. Notice how smoothly I made that transition. Point 3 on my list of 6. So we'll see how I thought the first 2 were going to be like that, and then the rest of them was going to give more attention to. So, self-massage. Now you might say, oh, what is that going to do? Well, the in Ayurveda, which is a fairly ancient and thereby enduring, thereby proven to be useful system of health from India, gives great importance to self-massage, as do the Qigong masters. So maybe they know something. These people who are revered as being, the greatest sages and masters, and so forth and so on, having great powers and longevity and yada yada yada. They all say, hey, you know what? Self-massage, you should do that. And we say, what do they know? See how our minds are? See how quickly we dismiss anything that doesn't fit into our very narrow idea, which is a materialistic idea of reality. We say, that's all fake. Those people are primitive. They don't know what they're talking about. They're just superstitious. It's all just made up anyway. Those people didn't even exist. Jesus didn't exist, and so the Buddha didn't exist, and these so-called Taoist masters that lived to be 1,000 years old, they don't exist. I'm not saying they lived to 1,000 years old, but whatever. So, self-massage. Now, that's pretty wide open. As in some way, maybe it should be, because in some sense, I think you need to find that which works best for you. But I can give you some ideas. So it depends in part on, I would say, so for example, in Ayurveda, they have their system is based on many ideas, one of which is this idea of doshas. So doshas are actually, can be understood as weaknesses. And so there are these 3 weaknesses, which are vata, which is air or ether, pitta, which is fire, and kapha, which is also called klema. I know it is kapha, which is water. And so we can have weaknesses in any of these ways. So if you have a vata weakness, for example, you tend to be dry. You tend to have more anxiety. You tend to have a lot of like uh, difficulty being calm and still focused because you're kind of all over the place. So that's a vata weakness. So these are very brief descriptions. You might, if you have pitta, it means a pitta weakness. It means, you're going to have, for example, you might have inflammation. You maybe tend toward redness on the skin, or like pimples or sores, things like that, things that are eruptive. So think volcanic fire. You'll tend maybe toward anger and irritability. And but pitta will be somewhat oily. So, pitta skin in particular, since we're talking about this in terms of massage, pitta skin maybe isn't going to want a lot of heavy oil, because that would be somewhat irritating. Although oils that have cooling properties, such as coconut oil, and especially if it has some herbs that have cooling properties in them, can be very good for pitta skin. Whereas for vata, because it's dry, so vata skin is going to tend to be dry, then oil can be very, very helpful. And so if you tend toward vata conditions of dryness, so like constipation, dry skin, obviously, like dry mouth, dry eyes, if you maybe tend to get your earwax tends to maybe clump because it doesn't flow nicely, these might be indications of vata. So an oil massage using something like sesame oil, and this can be messy, so I'll give you some further instructions on that matter momentarily. But sesame oil can be traditionally is very good for this. Sesame oil also, so vata also tends toward cold, and so oil that's both warming and oily, obviously, can be helpful for vata conditions. For pitta, you want something that's more cooling. And for kapha is may be oily, because kapha is like, think kapha is like growth, unrestricted growth. So kapha is, like what's that called? An endomorph. They're can become very big, muscular, but they can also become obese. Kapha tends towards slowness, sluggishness. So kapha can also lead to constipation, but it's different. Vata constipation is dry, gassy. Kapha constipation is just slow, will tend towards more mucus. So kapha is also mucousy, somewhat oily, but that's somewhat secondary. It's not really a primary indication, because kapha is water, as I said. So it's not really oil per se, but it's generally that kind of lubrication. So very lubricated. So kapha does very well if you tend towards sluggishness, heaviness, these kinds of things. Then you would probably want to use oil sparingly, if at all. But and if you did, you would want to use you'd want probably use an oil, again sparingly, but that has some warming and stimulating herbs. So, for example, like I would think camphor would be a probably anti-kapha. It would help move things because it's warming and stimulating. So things of that sort. So it's like cinnamon. I'm not saying you should apply cinnamon to your skin, but just to give you an idea of things that are kind of move, give you that kind of sense. So, and now, traditionally in Ayurveda, this oil massage is used. It's called Abhyanga, and it's used as a special treatment, but it's also recommended for daily self-application. So there are many benefits to it. 10 minutes left. I'm not going to give you all the benefits. I think we're going to go a little over for people who are interested in hanging out, who can do that. But not a lot. But got distracted by the comments. I got to stay on point. Where was I? Self-massage. So we want, oh yes, okay. So I find that because I tend toward more vata conditions. Not, by the way, these you can have some combination of these things, and it's just a way of thinking about it. Don't take it too seriously, but it's just to kind of frame things to give you a way to kind of start to understand and make choices. So I have tend toward more vata and kapha, which is a somewhat interesting combination. But particularly dry skin, my lymph doesn't necessarily move all that well, which I guess is more of a kapha thing, but maybe more because of dryness though. So I find oil massage to be excellent, very, very wonderful and nourishing. And so for anybody who has those kinds of conditions that I have, I can heartily recommend oil massage. I just use, most of the time, I just use plain, untoasted sesame oil. Now, the thing about it is that it's messy. And so you kind of have to find what's going to actually work for you in reality. And not everybody is going to need oil to perform self-massage. So if you don't need oil, then maybe you consider yourself lucky in that regard. But if you do need oil, if you tend toward dryness, then you should be aware that it can be very messy. And so traditionally, they use fairly large amounts of oil, multiple ounces. I don't remember offhand, but it's a fairly substantial amount. So it's applied fairly liberally to all of the surfaces of the skin. Well, that takes a while. So for most of us, that may be impractical just to schedule that every day. Now, if you happen to prioritize it and have the luxury of being able to do so, wonderful. But for the rest of us who don't have, an hour every day to dedicate to that, we need to do something different. Also, because that's so much oil, not only is it messy, it can also be potentially dangerous because of slipping, and messy doesn't really even do it justice. It can, that much oil starts to become a problem for like clogging drains and stuff. So let's see if we can find a middle ground somewhere that we can actually take use of it get the benefits, but not ruin our plumbing, not slip and fall, not make our spouses and children and whoever else unhappy with the mess and so forth. So first of all, I would recommend, if you are going to do an oil massage, I would recommend in general, unless you have a good system for doing it. Otherwise, I would use less oil. I would use just enough to be able to, you can kind of work it into the skin, and that once it's worked in, you don't have like, it's not like an oil slick on the skin, but you can still run the fingers somewhat firmly along the skin, and they just glide. Not like, again, not like an oil slick, but that you'll know the difference. If your skin is dry, and if you've never had dry skin, you just don't know what this is like. But if you have dry skin and you take the dry skin of your fingers and you try to rub it against the dry skin of your arm or your abdomen, let's say, then the fingers don't move. They're just stuck, dry against dry. It's like sandpaper on sandpaper. So healthy skin is, there's enough lubrication that the fingers can slide against the skin. Not just like a slip and slide kind of thing, but it's not sandpaper on sandpaper. It should feel nice, shouldn't feel super oily. But I find that no matter what, as long as I'm using adequate oil, then the skin is going to be somewhat tacky, even if just mildly afterward. And so that can be kind of uncomfortable, it would get on clothing and whatnot. So you probably then would want to time it and do it maybe before taking a bath, for example, or a shower. And then you might want to follow, if you want to use soap, for example, I would just recommend using the mildest soap possible that will just kind of take the excess oil off the skin, but not strip it, so that you, again, end up with dry skin. So it's going to be somewhat of a exercise in finding what works for you, but I haven't even given you any recommendations for techniques, but that's just oil or no oil. And if you use oil, how much and whatever. Oh, also, what parts of the body? Well, ideally, you massage the whole body. But if you can't really do the whole body every day, then at least do the whole body over the course of a week, for example. So you could like do your feet and legs one day, and you could do your arms the next day, and you could do your chest and shoulders the next day, and you could do your abdomen the next day, and whatever, face and head, which is the next thing the thing after the next thing on the list. In terms of the technique, there are different strokes for different folks. So like how I did that was pretty nice. Totally impromptu. So some recommend a rather vigorous massage. And this is very good, I would say, if you tend towards sluggishness. So obviously, you want to combine here, everything should be gentle, but you want to start to explore. Can something be both gentle and vigorous at the same time? And it can, because there's no conflict, but maybe the way that you normally do vigorous is not gentle. So then the challenge, and this becomes meditative, is to find how you can both be gentle and vigorous at the same time. Okay, pressure can be light or firm or medium, depending again on what your needs are. So you can play around with it and find what works for you. Be aware that you want to be respectful of your hands, because when you're doing self-massage, you're going to be using your hands a lot, and you can kind of fatigue your hands. So don't get cramps in your hands. Massage your hands as well. So maybe you take at least 1 minute after the massage to massage each hand. So 2 minutes at the end. So this could be like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's up to you, whatever will actually work in your schedule. Now, I would recommend that you do this in the morning, again, because mornings, we really need that. It's going to be best supportive of us. And honestly, if we don't do it in the morning, for the same reason we didn't do it in the morning, we're not going to do it the rest of the day, because we're going to say, well, I'll do it later after I've done these other more important things. But those other so-called more important things are the very things that keep us stuck in that pattern of never having time for the things that are actually important, because we're always doing these other things that we think are more important but aren't more important. So even if it's just 1 minute, you got to start where you are. So you just be honest. Okay, I can't do more than 1 minute. I'm all over the place. I can't be still. I'm, really having a hard time. I'm struggling a lot in life. And even though I know I really need it, I just can't seem to do it. Okay, do it for 1 minute. And I'll say that. Okay, next. Combine self-massage with Ujjayi. I'm glad I made notes, because I wouldn't have remembered all this. So for those who have been participating in the Bliss Techniques program, you are familiar with the Ujjayi Pranayama, at least the early stages of it, because we haven't really, it's many stages. We haven't really gotten that far in it, but we're going to progress through multiple stages. But you can, any stage that you're familiar with, you can combine self-massage with the practice of Ujjayi. Now, I'm not saying that you should always do Ujjayi with self-massage at the same time, but I'm not saying that you should always do self-massage and Ujjayi, at the same time. I am saying sometimes you could do both of them at the same time, and that can be beneficial in its own way. So it can be beneficial to do the self-massage completely focused on its own. It could be beneficial to do the Ujjayi Pranayama completely focused on its own. It can also be beneficial in its own unique way to combine the two. So I would recommend that you try that. If you establish a nice rhythm, a nice routine, you could start finding a way to incorporate all of these things in your morning, so that you start getting off to a really nice start every morning, because always there are going to be other things that are happening. And so, yes, there may be things that you find challenging, and you went to bed with some concern and you wake up with that same concern, but there's a big difference what is supporting you, because there are things that happen that we don't anticipate or we don't like or whatever, but are they happening in the context of a rhythm that supports unconsciousness and anger and resentment and frustration? Or are they happening in the context of a rhythm that supports compassion, peace, openness, joy, equanimity? See, it makes a big difference. And that's why I'm emphasizing, and I know we haven't done and I'm sorry if it's disappointing to some of you that we didn't do a guided thing today. I really had intended, we'll do a little brief guided thing momentarily, but I had intended to do more. But I want you also to understand, this is really important. This is more important than doing one guided practice, because what I'm telling you is that you have the ability, you have the knowledge and the ability to be able to change your life, and not only your life, but the whole world. And that it starts with you establishing the right rhythm, because you and your world consist of that rhythm. You just didn't know it. You thought that you were this thing that was outside of all of it, experiencing it, Like you thought you were experiencing the rhythm. In fact, you are the rhythm, but you're self-aware. So you are a self-aware rhythm that can change itself. And this whole world is that rhythm. You are that rhythm, and this whole world is that rhythm. And you can, you, yes, there are many things about the current rhythm that we don't like. I get it. So, but what I'm proposing here, and this is backed by great masters for thousands of years. So I'm not just standing here alone proclaiming it, although it would be enough if that was true, but it's confirmed, not just one person saying it, that you can actually change that rhythm and establish that which is truthful. And so I'm encouraging that, and I'm saying morning is particularly helpful. I mean, all day and night is helpful, but if you're going to start somewhere, start there if you can, because that and last thing at night before bed, those are the two most important, because at the beginning of the day is the beginning of the day. It sets the tone for the whole day. And the end of the day before sleep is what both concludes and brings closure to the day, encapsulating it, connecting it back up with the beginning of the day where you established a rhythm, and also what is, uh, sending you, wishing you bon voyage on your nighttime journey. So wouldn't it be good to bring some consciousness there? And so so these, I would say, are the two most important, and we're just up to now just talked about a few suggestions for how you can start to establish that rhythm in the morning. So I'll spell that out more in a little bit more detail, and then we'll do a brief guided practice, which is also something that you could, and I would encourage you to consider including into your daily rhythm. So first thing is, I would say, as best you can, try immediately, I mean, starting tomorrow, and from then on out, and you could, if you journal, as I'm recommending that you do, then and keep it simple. Like I was suggesting, you just sort of can just start to make your journal entries just the things that you want to remember. It doesn't have to be like what you dreamt and what you're doing that day and what you ate for breakfast and who called you and what they said and how you felt and all that stuff. It could just be, these are the three things that are important that I want to remember. This is the one thing that's important that I want to remember. So then you could put in there, what are the things I want to remember? Okay, here's one of the things I want to remember. When I wake up, before I even open my eyes, I want to be aware. And if you have a sense of relationship with a divine being, whatever that means to you, it doesn't matter, just purposefully open-ended, whatever that means to you, anything. But if you have that, then make it a prayer. Make it a prayer. Today, may I remember what is important. Today, may I be gentle with myself and others. Today, may I know patience with myself and others. Make it a simple prayer like that. Sets the tone. It's right there. It's like before you've even opened your eyes. Now you will fail at this, which is why I'm saying put it in the journal. And then you're looking at that once a day. Or for those of you who are in the journey principles, I see the same kind of notion like the life success plan. Something that you're looking at every day. So, but I kind of like this idea of putting it in a journal, because then you're actually writing it out every day. Yeah, that can that can go wrong just as easily as anything else, though. But then you're reminded. So you'll probably get, you'll open your eyes, you'll get out of bed, you'll make coffee, you'll read the newspaper, and then nobody reads the newspaper, but you'll do your normal thing, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna journal, because you'll have your journal sitting there on the table or whatever. And so you say, okay, what is it I'm supposed to remember? Oh yeah. Well, hopefully you've already written it in there, because you've taken notes from the meeting today, and you just, okay, here, I've done it, so it's ready for me tomorrow. So then you look at it and you say, oh yeah, oh, I forgot, I did all these other things and I totally forgot. Okay. Then you say, I will remember for tomorrow. Then you might even say, I'm going to forget tomorrow. You know what I need? I need to remember tonight to remember tomorrow. So I'm going to remember tonight. So then you make a note to yourself. Last thing at night while in bed, remind myself to remember that before I even open my eyes tomorrow, I will pray in such and such way, from the heart, but sincerely. May I be truthful today. May I remember truth today. This is something simple but sincere. And then while you're at it, since you're going to remind yourself of that at night, hey, you could have a similar prayer at night, like, may I may I have sincere gratitude for today, and may I remember to remind myself of my intention by praying first thing tomorrow. Okay. So then, once you've done that, then you open your eyes, you get up, and you do whatever other things you're going to do. But early on, I'm suggesting give yourself a massage for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever is workable for you, in whatever way actually works for you, and persist at it, and don't be rigid and just like, this is the only way, I can't do it any other way. Like, open to intuitive guidance so that you can find what actually supports you. Touch your body in a loving way. That's like the intention is so important. Love your body. Make the practice of the self massage of prayer of kindness and love for this body that supports you. So where you say, okay, body, where are you hurting? Let me help you. Let me help you to feel there, so that you can soften, so that you can feel good, so that you can be nourished, so that you can be flowing and healthy and so forth. Okay, so I'm suggesting do that. Probably for most people, if you're using any oil, please don't use a lot because of reasons. Don't apply it to the bottoms of the feet unless you're absolutely certain you're definitely not going to slip and fall. And don't overdo it, just because it will be a mess. And then if you use any oil, you're going to want to bathe afterward. And when you do bathe, don't use such harsh soap that it strips all the oil off your skin. Find something that is going to be a nice balance where you feel clean but not dry. Okay, and then I recommend that you practice some sort of pranayama. So we've covered a variety of them, but in particular, right now we're focusing on the Ujjayi pranayama. So I recommend that you practice the Ujjayi pranayama for however long is going to work for you. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, not more than 10 minutes. And then take a few minutes and just rest deeply and just be aware. And thoughts will maybe come. If thoughts come, just notice that it's a thought and just notice that you're aware and just rest as that awareness. Keep relaxing deeply. Often after the pranayama in particular, then that bliss is enlivened. So usually we can practice meditation without it being uncomfortable. And that's really the idea, is that the meditation has to be natural. It can't be forced. So if you start to become agitated and you can't relax, then don't force it. It's really important. But see that you'll discover that you can relax more and more, and that it becomes more of a choice. Okay, so final thing for today is we'll do a guided practice, and we'll do it seated as long as that's comfortable for you. If not, I don't know, have to figure it out how you'll accommodate it in another posture. And it's going to be face and jaw. So you're going to use your hands. You're going to touch your face. That's like that. Scream. You're going to just touch your face and just stroke your cheeks gently. Just feel, what do you notice? So you might notice all kinds of things. Like maybe you notice how does your skin, what's the state of your skin? Does your skin feel dry or oily or wet or what? And you might notice the skin seems to really can kind of make circles or however is comfortable for you, and just kind of notice skin seem to move nicely on the cheeks, or does it seem kind of like to be adhering somehow? Just kind of get a sense. And you could just kind of roll the skin a little bit with your fingers if that's comfortable. I mean, it should be gentle. We're not trying to hurt ourselves. It should be loving. But just familiarizing yourself with your own face, kind of feel around the ears, like down at the base of the earlobes, where the earlobes connect into the head. You might just kind of gently squeeze and roll the skin. See if you can how does that move? Does that come away from the skull, or does it kind of adhere? And if it adheres, you might be curious, why is that? Why is the skin adhering there? Is that good? Does it need to do that? You could kind of just gently pull on the ears. So it's gentle but firm. So don't be like timid, You want to be bold, but gentle, so that you're not hurting yourself. And just feel with your thumbs behind the ears. What does that feel like? Is there any kind of up around the ears? Notice, what are you feeling there? Do you know what that is? Are you feeling, is it bone, skin on bone, or are there muscles there? Sometimes you'll find bumps. And you have to kind of think, well, what is that bump? Is that bump my bone? Is that the skull, or is that something else? And if it's not the skull, why is that bump there? Sometimes you'll feel that it's asymmetrical, like the right side and the left side, they don't quite match up. And you might wonder, what is that? Because my skull's all lopsided and weirdly bumpy, asymmetrical, or might it be that I'm doing something unconsciously, holding something. So, you got muscles all over your face and skull. It's wrapped in muscles, thin muscles, but all over. Muscles on the forehead, muscles on the bridge of the nose, muscles all around the eyes, muscles all on the cheeks, and going into connecting into the lips. You can do all these things and on the chin. So you can just touch all these places and just feel wow, there's muscles all in there. You can take your thumbs and you can kind of prod them in under I've got this facial hair so you can't see, but under the jaw there. Don't hurt yourself. Don't choke yourself or anything, but just, you might find actually you can get in there quite a ways. Maybe you feel like, no, I couldn't get in there. I'd choke myself. But why is that? What do you think you're poking in there? What is all that? What are you feeling? It's funny, we don't ever really think about these things. But we're thinking about so many other things. Thinking about all these painful things, but we don't think about, what is this? Why am I feeling this? What is this here? So you just kind of slide your thumbs along on the underside of the jawline. Same kind of thing. You might feel like bumps and lumps and like cables stuff, all kinds of weird stuff in there. And you got to wonder, what is all that? Why is it like that? Maybe you start to realize, well, maybe part of why I'm not feeling so well is because because I'm forming all these bumps and lumps and cables where they don't exist otherwise. But I'm making great effort all the time unconsciously to do all this stuff. Okay. So, as if that wasn't already enlightening enough, let's explore the jaw a little bit. So you can take your hands and you're gonna kind of rest the thumbs. You find whatever grip works for you, but I find resting the thumbs right at the back of the jaw line, and then the other fingers kind of resting on the chin or on the lower jaw. So you kind of really are feeling the lower jawline and with your fingers, kind of wrapping around with your fingers. And take a moment and see, can you actually see same thing here as you notice. It seems a little bit asymmetrical, doesn't it? I mean, unless you have a perfectly relaxed jaw, which you don't, nobody does. Somebody does, but not you. Then you just feel like, wow, why is it asymmetrical? And why are there lumps and bumps there? Is my jaw lumpy and bumpy? I hope you've seen a jawbone. Maybe if not a human jawbone, some kind of jawbone, because they're all kind of similar. And you could even do like I'm doing, you just kind of turn the head a little bit side to side, but keep the jaw where it is. So you're kind of just gently holding the jaw in place. So the jaw just stays forward. Your hands are just holding it there. And you're just turning the head, and kind of let the eyes turn with the head. And as you're doing this, really have the intention to soften all of this here under your fingers so that you start to get clearer on the actual jawbone. You can start to really feel it. It's like a miracle. It's not like a miracle. A miracle happens. So if you're not experiencing the miracle, please know you could be. You just have to open to it. And it's no exaggeration. You just have to learn to A, recognize a miracle, and B, open to it. So the miracle is that you can actually start to feel your jaw. and like all the lumps and bumps and cables and stuff, they start to soften, they yield, and it's like melting. And it feels so good. It's like almost orgasmic. And maybe you think that's an exaggeration, but or maybe you think I don't know what an orgasm is because this isn't that good. But I don't know, it's pretty good. Honestly, I would take this over an orgasm any day. I mean, it doesn't have to be either or, but I'm just saying this is really good because this helps you through your whole life. This isn't just like a momentary thing. It's a wonderful gift that just keeps on giving. So, okay. So hopefully you've discovered that miracle. Please don't strain. So if make sure you're comfortable and resting. Let your shoulders kind of relax. Why not relax actually? You could let them actually relax. And then we're going to just keep the hands here. And so we're going to keep the hands holding the jaw in place. Now, you want to find the right grip so it's firm, but not like, I don't know, not like a vice or something. It's comfortable, secure. And you're going to now keep the jaw here, and you're going to look up and move the head up. And you're going to then slowly reverse that. So you're going to, I can't do it at the same time as I'm talking, so I'm going to have to just describe it. You're going to look up, and then you're going to move the head up, and then you're going to, for as far as is comfortable and pleasant and enjoyable for you. I mean, it can be so nice. It's just like, wow, it's so good. So you might want to really enjoy that for a long time. And then whenever you're ready, and you'll just slowly reverse that so that you're just looking down and bringing the head back down to meet the jaw. So the jaw remains in place. So you want to keep the jaw as relaxed and passive as possible through this. So you'll notice this is even better than the last one. Notice this is wonderful. If you have any jaw tension, holy cow, it's like there I go again, I like them. It is a miracle. So that you're just doing that. That's it. I mean, it's just for a few more rounds. You just going to do that. And notice with your fingers there on the jaw, you should start to feel the jaw even more clearly. And maybe you find your thumbs can actually start to poke up under the jaw a little bit. And it's like delightful and comfortable. It doesn't feel like it's going to choke you or anything. It's really nice. Keep your tongue relaxed in the jaw throughout this movement, because otherwise it's a little bit silly, isn't it? Trying to keep your tongue pressed up against the roof of your mouth as you're lifting the head away from the jaw. No, let the tongue rest in the lower jaw throughout. So if you're not in heaven, then I don't know what to say. I think that this is really wonderful. So there's a lot more that we could do, but we are at almost an hour and a half, so we'll conclude it there. I'll just say that play around with that. So this is something I would also recommend that you add into your daily routine, because look, we're holding so much in the face and in the jaw, and it affects us. It affects us because it literally produces feelings that we're struggling with, because we're associating that feeling with something, and we're like, I know I'm upset about something. I know there's something that's bothering me. I don't know what it is. So we're just looking for what it is that's bothering us, but we can't, we're looking past our own face, not realizing it is our face that's bothering us. So look, let's help our face soften and relax. Say this one more thing, because personally, I have found this to be really enormously helpful. Is okay. So this thing we just did with that thing, that might be all you need, but there's several layers of muscles here in the jaw, um, and they can, for some of us, especially if you've had a lot of like dental work or whatever, um, they become really get a lot of like trigger points and knots and stuff in them, and they're so tense. A lot of um, sensory motor amnesia into the back behind the ears, into the head, the connect, in the throat and neck and everything. All of that kind of turns into one giant misery. So the things that we just did are excellent. And if you want, like if you feel like, there's still stuff in there that layers I want to let go, I would say you can do one side at a time, and you place your one hand. So if you're going to put the left hand on the lower left jaw, just like we've been doing, and then the right fingers you can bring to the left cheek, and you'll feel along here. You'll notice there's what we call the cheekbone. There's a ridge right there, and there's muscles that connect into that ridge. So there are muscular attachments to that ridge. So the ridge may be able to feel it really clearly, or you may not be able to feel it really clearly because there might be a lot of tension in the attachments. But you can kind of poke in there a bit, because, like as I say, there are multiple layers. So there's like the masseter, that's the most superficial, but then underneath that, there's still other layers. You can actually, I won't demonstrate it, but you could, with a clean finger, you could put your finger in your mouth and up into the cheek area, and you could actually feel those deeper levels of muscles. But here you can just have the finger on that cheekbone and feel where if there's any tension there in the soft tissue, which there probably will be. And then you can, with the fingers placed there and holding them there, do the same exercise we just did, but the finger placement will help you to release, particularly I find those deeper layers. You can also then do the same kind of thing back underneath and behind the ear. So you just place the left hand on the jaw, just as we've been doing, but then move probably I find the thumb works best, just behind and underneath the ear. Same movement, and brings more clarity there to that area. So I find those are really helpful. I hope that you also find them helpful, and I hope that you will let me know. So that's all for today. I think that was plenty. So I did see there was one question in the chat about coconut oil. I'll just address that. Yes, for the self-massage, coconut oil is okay. Coconut oil is traditionally considered to be cooling. So it would maybe not be the ideal if you tend toward more vata conditions, or maybe more kapha conditions. So, and then there was, I wonder how I can explore the upper jaw as well. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I think we just I think I just gave some suggestions for that. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. And if you have any questions, doubts, concerns, or anything else, you know how to reach me. You can let me know. And that's it for today. So thank you very much for joining me. Blessings to you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.